Welcome back, everyone. We're going to be solving LeetCode 111, minimum depth of a binary tree. So we're given a binary tree. We need to find the minimum depth, and they define the minimum depth as the number of nodes along the shortest path from the root node down to the nearest leaf node. So we can see in example 1, the shortest path from the root to any leaf node is going to be 3 to 9, and there are 2 nodes in this path, so we return 2. So with that in mind, let's set up a base case, right? The number of nodes in the tree is going to be between 0 and 10 to the 5th, so if we don't have any nodes, right, we can just return 0. So we'll set that up as a base case. We'll say if root is none, we will return 0. Otherwise, what we are going to do is we are going to run our classic depth first search. So we'll set up our stack, and on this stack we will add our root, a visited status. We'll initially set it to false, and we also want to add the depth too. So we will start with a depth of 1. Right? If we only have the root node, that is a depth of 1. So now we're also going to have a variable, we'll call it min depth. We will set it equal to 0. So whenever we find a path from, like for example 1 is 3 to 9, right? That's one path, and the depth is going to be 2, right? We're going to find this within our depth first search, and then if that minimum depth value is less than our current minimum depth, then we're going to change this min depth to be that, and then we'll eventually return this. So we're going to set this min depth initially to the float value of infinity, because we are looking for a minimum value. Now we are going to run our depth first search, so we will say while the length of our stack is not equal to 0, we're going to grab the node, we're going to grab the visited status, and we are going to grab the depth with stack.pop. Now we're going to check, okay, is our node null? If node is not none, and we're going to say, have we visited this node before? So if visited is true, we want to check, okay, is the depth less than our current minimum depth? So we'll say if our depth is less than our current minimum depth, then we want to update our minimum depth. Minimum depth will now be equal to our depth, and then we can just continue on. So if we haven't visited a node before, we are gonna do a I'm just gonna do a post order traversal. So we'll say stack.append the current working node. We will change the visited status to true, and we will put the depth back on. Then we're going to check the right side. So if node.right is not none, we're going to say stack.append node.right. We will have an initial value for visited of false, and we will add 1 to our depth. And then we will do the same thing for the left node. So if node.left is not none, we're going to say stack.append node.left, initial visited status of false, and depth plus 1. Now, I did forget something. So if we come back up here, right, before we check if our current depth is less than our minimum depth, we want to check and see if we are at a leaf node, right? We have to check the depth of the shortest path from root to a leaf node. So underneath visited status of true, we are going to say, okay, if node.left is none and node.right is none, meaning we have found a leaf node, then and only then will we check this conditional. But other than that, the rest looks pretty good, so we will exit our depth first search, and we will return the minimum depth value. So let's get rid of some spaces, and we will run this. Perfect, we passed both test cases, so we'll submit. And it does run. Awesome. So time and space complexity for this problem is going to be O of n for both. Alright, that'll do it for LeetCode 111.